I'm going to start by talking about the story about a school district in Virginia because I don't think they realize that their uh, unnecessary concern would become such a big story. So, what happened is that about a week ago, this is at Augusta County Public School District in Verona, Virginia. The high school there, it's called Fort Defiance High School. They were going to have an art show, I think, on Sunday. And I don't know if this was an art show featuring just one student or a collection of pieces of art from several students, but like they were going to set it up on Friday night, Friday afternoon, Friday night, and it would be there for the weekend for the Sunday show, and then it would be taken down by Monday. So I guess what happened is that Friday afternoon, as students are setting up this show, some random person, spots one of the pieces of art that was part of this show, gets very offended by it for some reason, and then rushes off to tell a member of the school board. And before we get into what the school board said about any of this, I'm going to show you the picture in question. But here's what you need to know. This piece of art was created by a high school senior. Her name is Abby Driscoll. And let's look at this painting together, shall we? This is on a site called Artsonia, which is, I guess, where people. I'm gonna. There we go. So check this out. You have this painting. This is, you got the gist of it right there. And what you are looking at is you see background pages from the Bible, while the foreground shows praying hands clasping a rosary. There are what looked like blood stains in rainbow colors. And the text there obviously reads, God loves you, but not enough to save you, which is a very interesting statement. And actually, if you scroll down on this page, there is an artist statement basically saying, this is why I drew this. This is what it means to me. And I found this really interesting. Look at this part at the bottom here. This piece is representative of the idea that growing up queer means you couldn't be saved by God. You know, I grew up in a religious background, and that influenced this project. The idea of the glowing red cross is to represent evil in the eyes of God, and the bleeding rainbow represents devotion versus identity. Overall, the piece gets across the message I wanted to, even if it's a little in your face. I wish I had made, I don't care about her self critique, but you could see what it means. Basically saying, look, if you're a gay, a lesbian, a trans student who lives, especially if you live in the South, you are told constantly by Christians around you that God loves you, when the reality of the situation is that this is really the message. Unless you give up your identity, unless you deny the fact that you're gay or lesbian or bi or trans, God's not interested in you. God's not going to help you. In fact, you will be eternally damned. So you don't even have to love the artwork to appreciate the symbolism. And like, there's no doubt a lot of LGBTQ students feel like this, right? So again, like any good piece of art, this is a starting point for further discussion. And that's what was supposed to happen on Sunday when this was part of this art exhibit. And that was all going well and good until the school board member heard about this stuff, right? And this is what one of these school board members, I'm going to show you this. This is what the school board member posted on Saturday of last week. Let me switch this over here. Here you go. Let's read this together, shall we? I hope you can see this. Den, let me know if you can't see this because I think you could see this. All right. What does he say here? Several people have reached out to me. Several. All right. Regarding the art show on Sunday at Fort Defiance High School and a specific piece of art that is slated to be in the show. This particular piece of art is seen as offensive to some, including myself. The school board, oh my God, the school board has called a special meeting tonight at 9 p.m. to discuss. The meeting will be held in closed session. However, any vote on the matter will take place publicly. This is a sensitive topic with various dynamics at play. I will do my best to handle it as such. The school board is working with our legal counsel, and I'm currently reviewing the Supreme Court rulings relevant to this situation. All right. So let's talk about what this guy is saying here, because there's so much that's wacky here. First of all, how do all these people in the community know about the specifics of artwork at a local high school art show? Like, I feel like any high school art show should be seen by like 12 people, and most of them are the parents of the students whose work is represented in there. How do any of these people get so worked up over a student's project, furthermore, that they demand a response from a school board member? That's hard to believe. And it's even wackier that this guy says we're calling a special session of the school board to meet on Saturday night. Because whatever, you got nothing better to do on a Saturday night than huddle together and figure out what to do about a piece of art that a senior drew for an art class. Like, of all the reasons you would want a rapid response in a school district, this strikes me as very low on the priority list. And I love this line that this guy said. uh, I am currently reviewing the Supreme Court rulings relevant to the situation. They literally have legal counsel on the school board, but this school board member is, don't worry, everybody. I'm doing the work. I'm going through everything the Supreme Court has said over the years, and I will figure this one out. Like, we don't need you to be doing any of this. I'm sure everything is fine. Read the First Amendment, call it a day. You're good. Like, the student is fine. The school board is a hot mess full of delusional, thin skinned adults, right? And if anything, this overreaction proves the point that the student was trying to make, that the feelings that many LGBTQ students have as a direct consequence of Christian bigotry is a very valid subject for a piece of art, any piece of art, whether it's a painting or an essay or a monologue. And when the school board flips out over this innocuous painting depicting that tension, it shows how shining a light on bigotry usually angers bigots. Like, you don't need to go to SCOTUS for advice on that. You could just say it's freedom of speech, but it is not some overly offensive, purposely provocative statement that the school needs to prevent anyone from seeing. So, also in this comment thread for this guy's Facebook post, someone asked him, like, what exactly are you looking at here, more or less? And this is what he said to this person. Check this out, this comment. The Supreme Court, uh, let me do one thing here. Uh, There we go. Sorry about that. The Supreme Court rulings that we are looking at address this very question. Um, I'm going to skip through all this, but he says here, speech that creates a material disruption under the Tinker standard. Both what we're dealing with, along with the example you gave, would fall under the first category having to do with the Tinker ruling. And in case you're wondering what the hell all that is about, here's what you need to know about the Tinker ruling. This is from the ACLU's website. In 1969, the court said that students do not shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. The court found in this Tinker case that the First Amendment applies to public schools, and you can't censor student speech unless it disrupts the educational process. You know, back in the day, students were wearing black armbands to protest a war, and the court said, yeah, they have a right to do that. It's fine. So, going back to this case, who was offended by that piece of art? How did it disrupt the educational process? It didn't. It didn't offend anybody, because I promise you 99% of the school had no idea that artwork even existed until some mother complained about it and told the school board member. But like, the school board members like DEFCON 1 on this. So on Saturday night last week, they hold their special session of the school board for whatever reason. And what the conclusion they come to is the artwork can stay in the show on Sunday. We're not going to remove it. However, they added, they're going to consider revising district policy to prevent something like this from ever happening again. Because I guess the last thing they want in this district are students who can reflect upon injustice and spark important conversations. This is a local newspaper article about this, and this is what the school district said. Check this out. When the board came out of the closed session, which lasted just shy of an hour and a half, these people have nothing to do on a Saturday night. Chair David Shiflett thanked the board members for their discussion on the issues. The result of the meeting is that the board decided not to take any action on the art display. We did, however, decide that we will, moving forward, we will look at possible policy adjustments or other possible solutions to help remedy a problem like this in the future. A problem a problem like what? What the hell happened? There was no problem. These people created their own problem, and now they think, well, we gotta solve this thing we just made up. And that school board member who started all this, he had his own take on all of this. Let me share that with you here. He responded to the special session of the school board. Here's what he said. Update on the special called meeting. The board met and agreed to work on a policy that will address issues like this. What issues? Who knows? Going forward. As I mentioned previously, it is important that our students have freedom of speech, but also that we maintain a culture of respect within our schools. It's a delicate balancing act, but the board is committed to finding a solution. For now, the artwork in question will be removed by the time students arrive back at school on Monday as the art show ends on Sunday. Right, no one's going to see this. Also, look at what he says here. We have to maintain a culture of respect. That is the sort of logic that says we can't teach Black history because it'll make some white kids feel bad. Like, who cares? You teach it anyway. And if bigots are offended by someone whose work of art calls out, anti-LGBTQ bigotry, who cares? It's the Christian's fault. Let them deal with how shitty they make everyone else feel. Like, what is he talking about? And this idea that we need to maintain a culture of respect, he never details how this work of art violates that culture of respect. If calling out injustice is disrespectful, that is your problem. Sorry you don't like it too damn bad. Get over yourself, right? Apparently it's disrespectful to Christians when queer students point out how hateful those Christians appear. It's telling that this school board member cares so much more about the feelings of religious bigots than their victims. But he's not the only school board member who's acting like this, because there's another guy, Mike Lawson, who shared that original message from that other school board member. And this is what he said. He's like, it's not about limiting free expression or speech, but it's one of whether or not we will allow the desecration of religious texts under the umbrella of art by allowing pages from the Holy Bible to be the canvases of a clearly anti-Christian message. We are opening the door to all religious texts for all religious faiths to be subject to being treated the same way. Imagine if these were torn pages from a Quran, Islam, Talmud, Jewish, which is not the religion, or religious texts of any other faith. There are moral and ethical boundaries, blah, blah, blah. This impacts all people of all faiths. Look, this student did not rip up pages from the Bible, pee all over them, and stick it on a canvas and be done with it. No, she took pages from the Bible to use as background because the point she was trying to make is that the love of Jesus that so many Christians love to talk about is very different from the reality of how Christians actually act. Okay? And how do you symbolize that? Not using words, but using images. Using pages from the Bible is a way of doing that. Like, she's not doing anything disrespectful. This is about art. This is about symbolism and message and evoking emotions. If you are more offended by torn pages of the Bible than the hateful, harmful message that was literally written in red on that piece of art, you missed the whole damn point. And even by this guy's made up standards, those pages were not torn for the purpose of offending Christianity. They were just showing how the supposed biblical message of God's love can be twisted and distorted by the followers of that religion. So, anyway, as these school board members said, the artwork stayed up through Sunday and it was taken down because it was always going to be taken down before the Monday when the kids came back to school. But the board isn't done yet. They're still trying to craft a policy to address the imaginary beast that they want to slay. By the way, the next school board meeting is on June 6th, about a month from now. It would be nice if community members showed up to call out this absolute waste of time and energy because a student did exactly what she was supposed to do for her art project. Like she got people to think. There was an article written about this in the Staunton News Leader, and it's behind a paywall, but I want to show you one aspect of it that I found really interesting here. Uh, the article's columnist, Patrick Height, he spoke to Abby Driscoll, the student who drew this, and this is what she said, because very eloquent. The whole thing is about showing light through the darkness of trauma. That piece in particular was about religious trauma and trauma faced from not being accepted in a loving community. I wanted to really portray that. I know the message is a little strong and in your face, but the kind of shock factor is what I wanted to get out of it. And then she added, in this country, it's very hard. There's a lot of discrimination and backlash, a lot of non accepting people. It's like, yeah, she gets the problem. How come that high school student understands what those school board members don't? How come she's the mature one in this situation? Right? Like it doesn't make any sense. Um, One thing I would let you know in case you're curious is that Abby herself is surrounded by affirming people. It looks like her art teacher is on her side, the principal of the school is on her side, her own parents are on her side. Her mother told that newspaper columnist she's always been fairly independent, and that I guess a lot of blowback or backlash against the piece kind of proves the art's message. So, like, yeah, the mother's right. And Abby should be proud of what she created. And those offended school board members should be ashamed that she's more mature than they are. And I want to leave you with one last thing while we're on the subject here. I was looking at some of Abby's other pieces of art. I really liked this one too. Freedom of religion means freedom from religion. Uh, Someone give this student all the scholarships, please. um, I'm very curious to follow up with this about a month from now when they have their school board meeting, because I hope they just say, all right, we're not changing anything. Sorry, Abby, we made a mistake. I don't think they're going to do that, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens at that time. I'm going to stop there. Let's take some questions, Den. Message aside, Abby's artwork is just technically well made. The painting of the hands is really lovely. Yeah, I'm not in any sort of mindset to judge art, but like looked good to me. I can't do it. So I'm right there with you. It looked really good. I hope she got whatever she wanted out of it. How very dare an artist push the envelope and call out societal ills that need to be rectified. Yes, how dare anyone use art to shine a light on society, including the things we may not want to hear about ourselves. Like, what's the point of art if not to do that stuff? Like, what is wrong with people who don't get that? Preventing a student's right to their First Amendment rights to free expression. Like, you can tell the school board did not do that. They didn't do it yet. They just raised some questions, but they are inching their way toward trying to figure out, like, under what grounds they could censor artwork. That, again, I want to remind you, almost no one's going to see. Because I'm telling you, no one goes to art shows and no one goes to art museums. You think they're going to local high school art shows? They're not. And that's not a knock on the students. I wish more people did. But I'm just saying, this is like Streisand effect in action here. No one would have heard about this except the school board member decided to make it a thing. What kind of policy could be structured to prevent that one kid's artwork but not be insanely unconstitutional? Yeah, I mean, that is the question they're trying to figure out right now. I imagine they would say, if anything is deemed hateful, like hate speech can be prevented if you want to do that as a high school administration, you could say we have a policy preventing hate speech because it's generally applicable. But then the question is, what defines hate speech? Because nothing Abby did in that piece of art was hateful, in my opinion. She wasn't tearing out those pages because it was offensive to Christians. She just needed a backdrop to use for the message she was trying to get across. So again, this is where it gets into that weird gray area where if they pass a policy saying, well, you can't do anything hateful against religion, there are ways to pick that apart, and I don't think they want to go down that route. And where was the respect toward the student? She didn't deserve it? Good question. Um, yeah, I'm very curious why the school board didn't even bother talking to her about this. It didn't seem like they let her defend herself. That strikes me as very weird. It's so strange to see a school board use their power and the weight of their titles to bear down on a student at the school. Like, of all the places you want to target people, that seems to be the exact wrong way. You want to encourage those students. You want to amplify their work and say like, "Oh, this got people talking," and in a positive way, because who is for bigotry? But it's not this school board apparently.